YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. This morning, the judge ruled that Deshaun Watson will be suspended 6 games of the 2022 NFL season. That is a little bit less maybe than most people expected, or maybe some people hope for as well. The NFL can still appeal or add on the suspension. They got 3 days to do it. That could happen, but as of now, it's looking like a 6-game suspension for Deshaun Watson. So in this video, I kind of wanted to give my reaction, my thoughts to that real quick, because some people are probably curious about that. But as you know, here at the Goat House, we mainly talk about football, what's happening on the field, predictions, rankings, things like that. So I kind of wanted to mainly go through the Browns' schedule game by game, updated prediction, now that we know Deshaun Watson likely going to be suspended for 6 games there unless the NFL changes things. Best case, worst case scenario, things like that. So we'll go through this here. We're always talking to you guys on Twitter about news, updates, and more. And then here on the channel, we got all this content. Cannot wait for our in-season content. Like, subscribe to notifications on. Exclusive content for super followers there on Twitter as well. Should be a busy next few weeks. Preseason starting up. Can't wait. And a roster cuts that keeps us kind of busy here with a lot of NFL action. But yeah, we're gonna go through game by game. I'm gonna give my kind of thoughts here first, but we'll go through these game by games now that we know. We shouldn't say we know for sure, because Deshaun Watson currently on a 6-game suspension, that it could be an appeal or added onto that by the NFL, which is interesting. But yeah, so yesterday it kind of came out. We were talking about on Twitter that we learned that the NFL and Deshaun Watson's side were kind of trying to reach an agreement on a settlement before the judge's decision, and the lowest the NFL would go, because they wanted that full season. They were going down to 12 games plus a pretty hefty fine. That was the best that they could do, the NFL could do for Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson side, it was reported that 6 to 8 games was kind of the highest they would go. I was thinking it was probably around that 6 range. So they couldn't reach an agreement there. And the judge came out 6 games. And then before the judge decided that, we saw the NFLPA and Deshaun Watson were going to stand by whatever the decision was by the judge. And it seemed like they kind of had an idea where it was going. That's what it felt like, because they were already firm on that decision before the judge's decision. So they kind of knew it was going to be in that 6-game range, which is weird. So since the lowest the NFL was going to go, 12-game suspension plus hefty fine, you would think the NFL can't be too pleased with this. Do they want to kind of get in with all this appeal and court mess, when the season's so close? That's a little tough. So we'll see what they decide there. But I do have some thoughts. I do, and people definitely have the right to complain, about this. I know people wanted a full season suspension, kind of comparing to other suspensions. I think my problem with some people's argument, they'll look at Calvin Ridley was suspended for a whole year for gambling. Deshaun Watson, for what he did, only 6 games. So I understand the logic behind being upset about that. But at the same time, you kind of look at the NFL policy and, what they have in place. If a player were to gamble like that on games, it's kind of a set thing, suspended for the year. It's kind of in writing, a set thing there. So there's really no way around that. With this Deshaun Watson situation, there really is no set suspension. There's got to be an investigation, kind of going off people's word. There's just so much to it. So there isn't a set suspension. So I don't really agree with the argument comparing Ridley to Deshaun Watson for that reason. Now, you can make the case that the NFL, what they have in place is wrong. They should fix it. There should be a set suspension for what Watson did, because it sounds like it's worse than what Ridley did. So I do understand the logic behind people's arguments there. But it kind of reminds me of the COVID year. Remember the Tennessee Titans kind of, weren't doing things right. They were kind of practicing together when they weren't supposed to, kind of going against what was right with the COVID situation. And then they weren't fined or stripped of a draft pick. Everyone was complaining. Games had to get pushed back, but there was no NFL policy in place that said, if you do this, you are fined or stripped of a draft pick. Because of what the Titans did, they made that policy. Then the Raiders went ahead, violated some of that, and they were fined and stripped of a draft pick. Everyone complained, why weren't the Titans? It's because what the NFL had in place. They did not. It kind of reminds me of the situation, because they already had in place that if a player like Ridley were to gamble on games on his own team or whatever, it's a year. They don't really have something in place. They can't just make it up as they go. So in a way, I understand the NFL is in a tough situation, but they also, where you can complain and get upset about it, is They put them in this situation, themselves in this situation. They should be more prepared. So that's kind of my problem with the NFL. People may ask how long I think Watson should be suspended for. I don't really know what happened off the field. At first it was like one woman came out and then maybe four, and it was like you kind of wondered, how much of this is true. But then at a certain point it ended up being the 20 or so, whatever, women, and you got to think, he probably did something wrong. So considering that, it probably should be more than 6 games, I'd say. And just considering how most people would react, I think, I don't think there was going to be too much complaints, honestly, if it was a season long or the 12 game plus the fine. Maybe some Browns fans would be upset, but I don't think there was going to be too much of a complaint about that. I think everyone would be like, okay, that kind of makes sense. But the way they did it, the 6 games, now it's causing this controversy and causing all this, having people upset, and there's people that are confused about the situation and really getting mad at the NFL, which I don't know if they should be mad at directly the NFL. They need to be more prepared and have this situation more under control. It shouldn't have taken this long as well, but it's maybe it's a little frustrating the way it is what they decided. So we'll see if anything changes, but I did want to. I'm more of the football guy. What's going to happen on the field? So that's kind of what we're known for here. So I wanted to kind of go game by game with the 6-game suspension, knowing that that's it. It's not final, though, so we could have to update this again. But I know people are probably curious about this prediction, and we'll kind of go with multiple predictions here. But the Browns and the Panthers in Week 1, I'm kind of riding with the Panthers there. Baker Mayfield playing angry, against his former team, going against likely Jacoby Brissett. The Panthers were pretty deadly early on last year. It's because they had talent, and then teams figured out, all right, we know how to game plan for a not so good of a quarterback in Sam Darnold, and there it is. It wasn't too difficult to do that. But the Panthers are a pretty talented team. I think people forget. It's just on Baker. Will he be healthy? Will he play well? I think he will be healthy for Week 1. He's not banged up from the previous week, obviously. We had a long offseason, and the talent's all out there, and Baker's playing very angry. So I think in their home in this game, and there's no Deshaun Watson. So I'll take the Panthers here. The Browns could run very well on them. The Browns have a very, very solid defense. I think it'll be very good this year, one of the best in football. So they could cause some problems for Baker Mayfield. I'm kind of just feeling the Panthers in that first game. And the Jets and the Browns there, I was kind of leaning with the Browns, and this is one we can kind of change for another scenario here. But Browns at home, again, I think their defense can single-handedly win games. I really do. I think they have that pass rush elite player, Myles Garrett. Linebacker unit's getting better, adding Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah last year. Second year looks pretty damn strong in my opinion. I think they'll create plays, and they'll get sacks, get pressure. I think they'll create plays, get their hands on the ball. In a game like this, home against the Jets, which I really like the direction the Jets are heading. It could be a sneaky team. I think this probably could be a defensive game, perhaps. I think Browns at home, and that defense creates a little bit, maybe more problems against the opposing offense of the Jets. And then Week 3, the Steelers and the Browns. It's Thursday Night Football in Cleveland. Likely to be Trubisky, which the Browns defense could give Trubisky some problems. I just don't see the Steelers offense doing a whole lot. Now, the Steelers defense, could they get back on track? Could they be solid? Most definitely. They could give Jacoby Brissett offense of the Browns some problems. But the Browns are a very good rushing team with or without Deshaun Watson. Steelers should be a little better this year, but they were horrendous stopping the run last year against Thursday night in Cleveland. I just like the way the Browns match up, even without Deshaun Watson in that one. I just really like the way they match up. Maybe they have a better shot at losing to the Jets and the Steelers just because of matchup, in my opinion. I don't know. We'll see. And then it's a pretty good draw if the 6-game suspension holds. It's like the kind of the bottom line of what we expected. 6 games, we expected more, and they got a pretty good draw of games here. I mean, even the Panthers game is very winnable. Then you take a look at the Falcons, which the Falcons could be sneaky. Mariota offense could be a little tricky to stop at times. They got, the 2 big targets there with Pitts and London. Defense should be a little bit better. This is probably a defensive game. We're talking Browns versus Falcons in a defensive game. I think I'm leaning towards the Browns a little bit more there, and they have that rushing attack that still could go off in a game like this. I definitely take the Chargers over the Browns. Chargers should be at least a playoff caliber team. At least they could be a contending team here. And it'll be going against the Jacoby Brissett Browns team. But the Chargers were very bad against stopping the run last year. The Browns could run wild on them, and they cleaned it up a little bit. I just think the Chargers find ways to score and can, because they're that good of an offense. Browns are very good defense, but can Brissett and company keep up with that? Is the run taken away from them because they're playing from down? They have to pass to save time and come back. One of those games. And then Patriots, Browns, again, no Deshaun Watson this game. Kind of leaning towards Patriots, and that one probably a defensive game. I'm going to trust the Patriots offense to do a little bit more, but the Browns, again, this is a team, the Patriots defense, even though it's usually pretty solid, and the Browns could run all over and maybe basically win that way. So it's definitely possible. So you look at, we'll do more than just the 6 games here, but you're kind of looking at these 6 games. Honestly, the Browns could win against the Panthers. Like we said, they could run all over the Patriots. They can win that game, and you kind of going back. I think between the Jets, Steelers, and Falcons, I have them winning 3 in a row. They very well could lose one of those. But if we change that, if I would have changed one, it honestly would probably be the Steelers are probably the best team of the 3, but just based off matchup, the situation, maybe the Falcons. So that would be one I could switch, but then we can sit here and switch the Panthers or the Patriots game as well. So 3-3 record without Deshaun Watson. I think that's all right there. And then you go into Deshaun Watson coming back. And here I don't see anybody talking about this because maybe it's just not the main talking point right now. But maybe if it ends up being a 6-game suspension, the NFL's not happy with it. But whatever, they put up with it. Maybe they just add a fine. Besides the point. But we've seen officials in what it feels like the league kind of control games before. We've seen it. We don't know if it's on purpose or not. We've seen it. Now, if the NFL is not happy with Deshaun Watson, with the situation, with the Browns for trading him, giving him all that money, maybe it's a weird thing. It's a weird take, but I think it's a logical take. Maybe they take it out on him and them on the field there. So maybe the officiating isn't fully clean for the Cleveland Browns and Deshaun Watson. You can imagine if they... Is the roster that's built with Deshaun Watson built to win the Super Bowl? Imagine if Deshaun Watson, the Browns, won the Super Bowl this year. I think all hell would break loose. So maybe that isn't allowed, based on what's happening on the field. I think it's a weird take, but I think it's logical. I don't know. But, so we get into the Deshaun Watson part of the season here. He hasn't played football in a long time. He's still extremely talented. I can see him being dominant right away. I can see him kind of taking his time. Not a lot of time, but to get going. But in Baltimore, Week 7, first game back, I'm going to take the Ravens in that one. Watson's first game back. Now, that team is very dangerous. The Ravens are too, but I meant the Browns, especially with Deshaun Watson. They can win even if Watson's a little sloppy, a little rusty. Because it's just that good of a team, a good roster. So, but I'll take the Ravens in that one. And then Week 8, home against the Bengals, Monday night. I thought about the Bengals this one, too, because the Bengals, we know, are a very good football team. How's the officiating for the Browns and Watson? How is Watson? Is he still rusty? So I thought about the Bengals here in this one. I just don't see Watson coming in, them dropping 2 in a row. Monday night in Cleveland. I'll take the Browns, but that one could go either way. As a defensive battle, probably Browns versus Dolphins. 2 very good defenses, 2 offenses that you would think got a lot better. The Dolphins with the coaching staff, with Tyreek Hill, Waddle in the second year, the group of running backs, the offensive linemen just really on Tua. And the Browns, because they had talent already, and they added Deshaun Watson, who's potentially elite quarterback, can be at any given time. And then just 2 great defenses here. So the Dolphins blitz maybe can cause some problems. They might be the best blitzing defense of all. They may cause some problems for a Watson trying to kind of get back and groove. We had 2 games in the bye, though. Defensive teams that got better on offense. I'm going to take the better offense, which is the Browns, as long as they have Deshaun Watson here. So we'll take the Browns. Week 11, Browns-Bills. There's a battle right there. 2 very good rosters, 2 very good quarterbacks. So that's a pretty damn even matchup right there. Pretty damn even. I think the deciding factor for me is, when we get down to when we're actually in Week 11, deciding factor could be who's hot, who's cold, who's healthy. That's a big thing. So that could be the deciding factor then. But right now, when it just seems such an even battle, I'm going to take the team with maybe a little more chemistry, and they're home in this game. That helps too. I'll take the Bills. The Bucs-Browns, this is pure matchup, which I usually like to go off, especially during season. Pure matchup. I like the Bucs actually on this one. The Browns are a very good team. These 2 games, both of them very winnable. But the Bucs will do a great job of taking away the running game. and forcing the Browns in a pass situation. That's the beauty of having Deshaun Watson. They can still win that way. But the Bucs will focus on that one thing. I think Tom Brady and company, that collection of weapons, find ways to score in a stout Browns defense still. I'll take the Bucs for the matchup reasons there. Browns, Texans, Deshaun Watson versus old team. He'll take care of business there. Definitely will have the split here. I don't think Browns or Bengals will sweep unless Deshaun Watson's out for both, and the Bengals will sweep the Browns. Ravens, Browns. Yeah, I don't think there's a sweep here either. I think the Browns split that. Saints could be pretty tough. How healthy will they be in Week 16? They could be pretty tough, though, on defense. They might be able to slow down. They tried to get Watson, too. They really wanted him, obviously. But, Browns at home will take them. Commanders' defense should be pretty solid. I think the Browns' defense creates a lot of turnovers in this game, perhaps. That'd be the difference. And then the Browns-Steelers at the end of the year, Week 18. We fully expect Deshaun Watson to be in this game, even if the suspension of 6 games changes. I just like the way the Browns match up against the Steelers. I think the Steelers will have quarterback troubles this year. They still are very well coached, and they have talent everywhere, for sure. I just think the Browns can run all over them first, and then they can, Watson probably can do some damage to the air, and that defense can, again, get pressure on Trubisky, Pickett, Rudolph, whoever it may be, create some turnovers. I just like the way the Browns match up with the Steelers there. So I feel 10-7 up here. So with Deshaun Watson out 6 games, it's still pretty damn good. Why is that? Because the Browns have a pretty good roster. Brissett's got the opportunity to pass, and he couldn't get the job done on some decent teams, so that's kind of the thing you worry about. But the Browns have a pretty damn good roster. I'd say that roster at full strength, full no suspension, everyone in there feels like a Super Bowl roster. Now, is that me saying they will win the Super Bowl if everyone's in there or whatever? No, I don't think they'll win the Super Bowl this year, but it feels like a Super Bowl caliber, I guess we'll put it that way, roster. So that is a reason, one reason why 6-game suspension, they still go 10-7. Another reason is, they're 500 to start the first 6 games without Deshaun Watson because it's a pretty favorable schedule, I think they got to win 3 of these games no matter how you do it. Like, we can switch this, but then we can switch this, could they go on a losing streak? It's possible. I don't see them even coming out of there a 1 win. I think it's 2. I think it's 2, 3, 4 in that range. I had 3-3, so that's pretty big. I thought about the Bengals in this one. We could switch that between the Bengals and the Dolphins. Come off the bye, I like them against the Dolphins. We could switch the Bengals to that one because maybe Watson's still rusty. Maybe the officials aren't on their side. The Bengals are a very good football team. It'd be pretty crazy if they go 3-3 and then Watson comes in and they're 0-2 right off the bat. Everyone's gonna be like, whoa, but it's just a schedule difference there. Then they get the bye, but then I switched them to the Bengals. But remember, I had them losing 2 in a row to the Bills and the Bucs. There's a shot they can pull off both of those, but you think it's realistic one of them. Pretty good about these ones down here. So I feel pretty good about the 9-10 range. This is what I had, including the 6-game suspension. Of course, that could change. I think they start with 2 wins. Weird things happen. I'd say the first 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, weird things happen in the NFL. People always try to put labels on teams based off that. It's just a mistake. Weird things happen. So the Jets could very well win this game. I just feel really good about. I think the bottom line is 8 wins, just because the Browns, even with the suspension, is just a very good team. So I think the bottom line is 8 wins. I really feel good about the 9-10 range. 11 could be the max. So I think that's a pretty tight range. If we're trying to expand as much as we want here, 8-11. If we're trying to tighten it up, I'm really thinking the 9 or 10 win range. If the suspension changes more than 60, if it changes 8 games, we just changed 1 game there, really. So actually, that wouldn't be a difference between. It's weird because it's only 1 game, but the difference between 10 and 9 wins feels pretty significant. So I guess it would be significant if it was 8 games. I don't really see it getting changed to 12. Could it? I just don't see it because that was kind of where the NFL was looking, and then it seemed like the judge was more on the Watson side there. So if it does get changed or added, I think it would be a fine and then maybe a game or 2 there. So we'll push it. We'll say maybe it's 10 games, so then they can, they lose to the Dolphins, and we're looking at around 8 wins there. So that is a possibility. The Dolphins were the team that was really in on Watson. It's been a bit, but it really felt like he's ended up a Dolphin. I just remember that now, as I said, the Dolphins too. So interesting. So I'm kind of feeling in that range. I think the Browns have a good enough roster. What's going to happen on the field? Is the NFL going to be polite to them on the field? This is something I can see that maybe they have a hard time with officiating and kind of getting calls. Just kind of a hunch thing. People are probably on the same page with me. But, we'll see if the suspension gets changed. I'm very surprised with the 6-game. I'm really not surprised based on the information we got yesterday that the NFLPA and Watson weren't going to appeal. They were good with whatever the judge decided, so they kind of felt like they knew what was coming. Because why the hell would they say that beforehand? And all of a sudden a full season suspension comes out and then they change their mind. We're going to appeal it. And no, they knew something. They knew something, which is odd, but whatever. I do definitely I'm not the off the field issue guy. I don't know what exactly happened. It's not up for me obviously to decide, but I think it should be more than a 6-game. I do, but not because, again, earlier in this video before I started with the record predictions, I said most people's explanations is really got suspended for a year. Watson got suspended for 6. That's why it makes no sense. That's why Watson deserves more. That's not how I look at it. Two different situations. One has a set policy on how many games a guy was to be suspended. It's kind of a set thing. And the other is a more complex situation with a whole investigation and going off people's words. So it doesn't make sense to compare the situations, and it doesn't make sense to say that's why Watson should be suspended more. I think you got to look at them separate. I think Watson should be suspended more because it seemed like a serious situation. There was a lot kind of against him at this point. It is a very tricky situation. Again, I don't know what happened off the field. I don't really know. Nobody really knows the facts. It doesn't look good for him, though. But another reason is just the reaction to the 6-game suspension is mainly negative. Like there is really no positive out there. Like I think Browns fans are probably like, okay, we get our quarterback. They're happy about it. Like if I was Browns fans, if I was a Browns fan, I'd be like, all right, we get our new prized possession. We get a new quarterback week 7. Okay, but I'd also feel kind of weird about it. So I don't think there's really any big positivity coming out of the 6-game suspension. So that is another reason I think it's too low. I really think I really wish, another take too, maybe they did. I don't really love it because the NFL, the bottom line of what they were going to do for Deshaun Watson was 12-game suspension plus a very large fine. Now, first glance, I was good with that. It kind of meets somewhere in the middle maybe, but it still needs to be something hefty, not the full season. So that kind of made sense, but I'm like, the fine kind of hit me the wrong way, actually, the more I thought about it. Because the NFL is going to collect that money. Sure, they may donate to something, but that's kind of Watson's money then that they're, it's kind of weird. I think what they should have done was a 12-game suspension or 10 or 14, whatever, 10, 12, or maybe 8. Maybe offer that 8 and say, you also have to donate or participate in some cause that, could help. And that would have been a good idea because if Watson declined that, he looks pretty bad, So my take, maybe that went down. We usually don't get all the information of behind closed doors, what happens. So this is kind of rare. So maybe something happened there. So something I kind of just thought of now. So I thought that actually would have made a lot more sense. Like even if it was 8 games, maybe the NFL will come back with something like that. Maybe 8-game plus the fine, something to do with the, whatever the situation that Deshaun Watson could help with, I don't know, kind of just spitballing at this point. So, yeah, I guess again, nobody's really happy with the situation right now. So we'll see what the NFL decides in the next 3 days. A lot of people seem to think they don't want to get involved with that mess, and they don't think there's really any, winning an appeal. They are the NFL, though. I feel like what they say could go here. So, and they wanted that at the bottom line, 12-game suspension plus the big fine. So you would think they're not good with 6. They're going to have to do something here. So wait and see. We'll have you updated on Twitter, of course, like we always do. If the suspension changes game-wise, amount of game-wise, we could update this. I kind of gave you the scenario with the 8 to 10 games, though. I don't think we're going to see anything more than that. I don't think we're going to see it go to 12. Maybe we do. The bottom line for the NFL was the 12. That's you still get the idea. So we really won't have to update this because you kind of get the idea. It's only going to drop down a game or two, probably 2 of wins, and that kind of gives you the answer. They're probably not going to make the playoff that way, but the way it sits at 6 games, they very well can make the playoffs. The AFC's pretty tough though, so does 10-7 do it there, especially when playing with the Ravens and the Bengals in that division. So pretty interesting. But that'll wrap this up. Wanted to get my thoughts and updates here on this. And again, we'll have more on Twitter. Follow us there. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. We got a bunch of recent rankings, predictions, and more that went up on the channel. More to come. We'll have you covered with preseason and roster cuts. There'll be kind of a mini free agency after the final roster cuts. We'll have you covered with that, which should be a lot of fun. Always look forward to that time of the year. Then the season starts. We got our normal in-season content. I'm pumped. So join us. Be much appreciated. It's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.